Commissioner Curtis Richardson. I'm chairing the CRA this year, and we're going to get this situation with my position cleared up by the next meeting. We didn't want anything to be confusing because this is where I sit during commission meetings. So, but by the next meeting, we'll have that rectified. I want to, first of all, welcome each and every one of you for coming out this morning. I know it's sometimes difficult to get here this time of morning at City Hall, finding parking and making your way to City Hall. So we certainly appreciate all of you that are here this morning for this morning's meeting. I want to also take this opportunity to welcome the mayor and my fellow commissioners that are here this morning. This is at least Commissioner Cox Williams Cox. I get it right. First meeting and Commissioner Matlow's first meeting. And Mayor, I think you've been on the CRA at one point?
8 years ago.
8 years ago. So he's back. Welcome back.
Thank you. Do you want to switch so you have staff? I'll be more than happy to jump in down there if you want.
Well, no, we're good because our names are.
Okay.
And so I wanted to make sure people could associate us with our.
So you don't want to be John Daly?
But we will have that straightened out. Mr. City Manager, if you could make sure at future meetings we have that corrected. So again, welcome to you all. We, again, are here for our CRA meeting. We've got some exciting things on the agenda. We're headed in an exciting direction, I think, with the CRA. We've done some exciting things, accomplished a lot over the several years that the CRA has been in existence. But I think the direction that we're headed now will be more in line with the true vision of the community redevelopment agencies when they were established by the legislature. And that is to address issues of slum and blight in traditionally neglected neighborhoods. And we're going to hear about one of those neighborhoods this morning and the plan that the residents and property owners of that neighborhood have come up with. And that's the exciting thing about where we are with that now, is that this is a resident neighborhood up initiative and not a government imposed initiative. And we're working with them as partners in this effort. So I'm excited about that, and I know you all will be too. So again, with that, we'll call the meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is public comments. Roxanne, do we have anyone signed up?
Yes, we do. And Sheila Williams will handle the comment section.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much. Good morning. So far, I do have 6 speaker cards as it relates to public comments on agenda items. The first speaker I have listed is Dr. Ed Hollyfield. Dr. Hollyfield, if you would, please come to the microphone at the podium, state your name and address for the record. You'll have 3 minutes. There is a light at the microphone that will indicate, it'll go from red to green, green to red to indicate that your time is expired. If you would, please at that time conclude your comments. The next speaker that I have behind Dr. Hollyfield is Katis Donaldson.
Good morning, Dr. Hollyfield.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Let me say one thing about this artificially imposed 3-minute time limit. That does not serve us well. And that's why you don't have that many speakers coming up here. I've come to some of these meetings, there have been 1 or 2 speakers. Because speakers have been so beaten down, they don't even show up. So if you have only 1 speaker, for example, and that's oftentimes the case, why on earth would you limit that 1 speaker to 3 minutes? And some of these issues are complex. They can't be resolved in 3 minutes. Like that infant formula at TMH that I brought up. Y'all should have brought that up. It shouldn't have been on me to bring it up, which was undercutting breastfeeding. And all that contamination at Care Point. I had to bring that up. That wasn't my job. I'm not on the public payroll. So why would I have to be limited when I'm doing y'all a favor. Because y'all aren't doing your work. Y'all should have dealt with that contamination. Y'all should have dealt with TMH handing out that infant formula in the hospital delivery bags. But Curtis wants to make sure I don't go a second over 3 minutes. Because Curtis has never wanted to hear what I had to say. And I think, that's just one more example where we don't think we're even important to y'all. Now take this CarePoint thing. I've had the police called on me for being on that property. And it's my building because I paid for it, $1.5 million. Curtis says that's fine. Curtis probably thinks I belong in jail. And then that exchange property, it hasn't come back yet to my knowledge. Y'all probably haven't even read this development agreement. Why have a development agreement if nobody reads it? Y'all read this? It's a development agreement between the CRA staff and CarePoint. Why have an agreement if nobody reads it? It doesn't make any sense. That exchange property was supposed to come back to the Frenchtown CRA. It shouldn't have gone to CarePoint in the first place because it's a not-for-profit. There is no tax increment for a not-for-profit, so the whole premise was false. The community doesn't benefit at all. Except to the extent, unless you enjoy having the police called on you, 2 Tallahassee policemen came after me. So I'm going to say, really, that I hope with this new commission, there's some new blood. And y'all start taking us seriously. Nobody laughing at Irwin Jackson now. Nobody laughing. I've been saying CRA was corrupt a long time ago. Money going to Ron Sachs, one of the richest people on the planet, with Mad Dog Construction doing the work. How can you justify that? Money going to the Seminole Boosters, Doubletree Hotel with Mad Dog doing the work. You would think all the city government, you might as well open the checkbook and give it to the chamber. Give it to these leadership Tallahassee people?
Dr. Hollifield.
Give it to Mad Dog Construction?
Dr. Hollifield.
Another minute.
Dr. Hollifield.
Why on
Dr.
earth?
Hollifield, your time is up.
Why on earth should we have any faith on you?
Your time is up.
I want to take another minute,
Dr.
Curtis.
Hollifield,
You never
your
wanted to
time
hear
is
anything
up.
I say.
Your time is up.
I think your time is up. You've been on the commission too long.
Dr.
That's
Hollifield,
the
your
problem.
time is up.
You've been on the commission too long.
Your time is
now,
up.
I'm saying
Thank you.
that
Dr.
some of these
Hollifield,
issues are
your time
real.
is up. Thank you.
Is CarePoint in
The
default?
next speaker I have listed is Dr.
Are they in default?
Donaldson, Professor Katis
Because our
Donaldson.
land has not come back to the CRA.
Is our next
The
speaker
annual
here?
report has not been produced,
Dr. Hollifield,
to
thank
my
you.
knowledge. And Curtis, you can talk as much as you want to, like
Dr.
I said.
Hollifield, thank you.
I think your problem is you've been on the commission
Dr.
too long.
Hollifield, thank you.
And we need some new blood.
Who is our next speaker?
Thank you. We have Professor Katis Donaldson, then followed by Shamar Banks.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, on behalf of the College of Social Science, Arts, and Humanities, I'm here to speak on behalf of the partnership that our students in the social work department have participated with the Greater Bond process, as well as us, the architect students from Florida A&M University has participated as well. It has been a great opportunity to work with the community. It's been a great opportunity because our focus for social work for our master's program is macro, and we look at community policy and administration. So we were able to actually bring the classroom to life by being a part of this movement. And I am very thankful to Mr. John Baker and his staff and the spearheads of the Greater Bond piece. It's a beautiful union because most of them are FAMU University alumni. And now they're reaching back and educating the baby Rattlers, soon to be alumni. And so through that, we have done a lot of walking the streets, doing surveys, evaluations, different community projects. And Mr. Baker, I have guaranteed him, as long as I have life in my body, that we will continue in the spring and throughout, moving on to the next phase of the South Side improvement. I think this is a great project, not only for the communities of the people of Tallahassee, but also for the students at FAMU. Because as I noted, FAMU and bond go hand in hand. You know, we're entwined within each other. And myself being a native of Tallahassee, I am so proud to see that we are moving forward. I am a graduate of NIMS. I'm a graduate of Rickers High and moved on from TCC to FSU, and now I teach at FAMU. So I've been all around Tallahassee. So I am just excited today. And I cannot leave without saying none of this could have not been done without the support of my chairperson, who is Dr. Yolanda Bogan. Please raise your hand. She takes my craziness for the community and say, Katisa, go with it. You know, just let me know what you're doing. And Dr. Matthews, who trusts her enough to trust me, and Ms. Arnett Washington, any questions I have, she snaps back right quick. And so it has become a village. It's been a birthing not only for Bond, but for the university. We've received support from the president and also from, what's the guy named Brian? I can't think of his name. He's from the upper administration office. But I just want to let you all know we are here, and we're looking to bring more students on. In January, we'll present to some of the other departments who are part of the College of Social Science, Arts, and Humanities, and look for that orange and green to just embrace the Bond community and do what we can do to make it great again.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Shamar Banks on agenda item number 502, followed by Dr. Chris Daniels on agenda number 502, followed by Mr. Rhett Turnquest, agenda item number 502. 5.02.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Greetings and humble salutations. I am Shamar Banks, a graduate student with the Department of Social Work at Florida A&M University. Recently, we were granted the opportunity to work with the citizens representing the greater Bond community and their various ways of community engagement and development, such as the Safety Committee, Land Use, Economic Development, and Beautification. FAMU Social Work seeks to promote social change and development, the cohesion and empowerment of people, and it also teaches us that we must engage a community and its structures to address life changes and enhance the well-being of its citizens. So on behalf of myself and my cohorts, we would like to thank you all for welcoming us into your community and, more importantly, being a part of our family. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker.
Dr. Chris Daniels, agenda number 502.
All right. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. Kind of speaking today on two fronts. One,
Excuse me. Could you give us your name and address?
Yes, sir. It's Christopher Daniels, and my address is 704 Gamble Street.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you. So I'm speaking today kind of on two fronts. One, as a professor at Florida A&M University, someone who's been there for the past 7 years now, and also someone who's lived in the Bond neighborhood for 7 years. Just to kind of give you a story, when I first bought some property in that area, people said, you were crazy. You're crazy. You can live anywhere in the city. You got a good job. You make money. Why would you buy something in that area? Because it's dead. And I said, you know what? I believe in this area because I've seen what areas can do, right? When I first bought my house, when I first bought one of my houses, someone broke in it. They stole all the AC units, tore all the copper out, and spray painted gang paraphernalia stuff inside the house. And they told me, this is a dope house, and it's always going to be a dope house. I don't care what you say. And I told them, no, it's not, because it's mine now, and I'm changing this neighborhood. And I stood up to these people and ran them out, and they're gone. In the other house, the other personal house that I live in, I was surrounded by 2 abandoned houses for 2 years. 2 years. People used to go in there with prostitutes. People used to go in there and smoke crack, all types of stuff. When Rhett Turnquest bought the house next to mine, that saved and really, really helped that community by getting rid of that blight. So what I'm saying is, you know, when people invest and people are willing to put their money where their mouth is, we need the city to get behind those type of things. Because there's many people who work at FAMU who would love to buy a house in Bond, who would love to invest in Bond, who would love to build even commercial properties within Bond, but they just need to know that the city is going to support it. So that's why when we ask for the money from the CRA, we're not asking for it to just dump money into a leaking bucket. This area has tremendous potential. What inspired me to invest in bond was when I went to Howard. I went to Howard. There's a neighborhood behind Howard University called LaDroit Park, right? It was run down, horrible neighborhood. Now that the city invested money in that neighborhood, that's one of the most beautiful parts of DC. Very, very beautiful, and bond can be that same thing. So when we're asking for funds, we're asking for an investment, not as, beggars or as someone who just needs something. We're asking you to revitalize something that's going to have tremendous potential and is going to help the city grow and modernize to where wants to be. We lose way too many talented people to Atlanta, to DC, to Charlotte, to other major cities because we don't have enough nice progressive neighborhoods, particularly African American neighborhoods, and the people in those neighborhoods are getting very, very old, and we're not replacing them with young professionals. So this is a way we can get those young professionals to come into our communities, to live here and stay, to build our city to where it can be. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker.
Next speaker I have is Mr. Rhett Turnquest, followed by Ms. Laura Johnson on agenda number. Mr. Turnquest is on agenda number 5.02. Ms. Laura Johnson is on agenda number 6.01. Name and address for the record, please, sir. 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Rhett Turnquest. I live at 220-1 Young Street. I chaired the Land Use Subcommittee of the Neighborhood First team with other subcommittee chairs, members, and stakeholders. We have 40 or so students from the Florida A&M University Social Work Graduate Program and the Alpha Rho Chi fraternity working with us. We're so excited to be working hand in hand with our FAMU students and their brilliant ideas as we look forward to engaging other disciplines at the university level. I want to thank them all. I understand Mayor Daley and the new commissioners toured the bond community, and I'm sure you now understand the urgency of why we're here. The police department installed security cameras throughout the community, which has decreased crime and added an additional layer of safety in the bond community. We conducted surveys, and most agreed that the reduction of crime and community beautification were of utmost importance. We consulted a landscape architect concerning our cost estimates, which helped to formulate a 3-year budget to include a linear park that connects the community to Tallahassee Junction and the St. Mark's Trail with various park features that the architect students will highlight shortly for an estimated $1 million. Also, phase 1 would include the facade grant program to paint, landscape, and provide minor repairs to 50 structures for a total of $500,000. The total estimate for phase 1 fiscal year 2018-2019 being $1.5 million. Phase 2 fiscal year 2019-2020 includes the beautification and streetscape of Saxon Street, Keefe Street, Floral, and Holton Street. This will include ornamental street lights, trees, and other enhancements for an estimated $3.9 million. Phase 3, fiscal year 2020 to 2021, connects the Western Gateway, which creates a cohesive east-west landscape corridor from the Tallahassee International Airport to the main campus of Florida A&M University. This 4-block streetscape beautification from the roundabout at FAMU Way and the Gamble Street east to Perry Street will include art and a decorative archway at the western entrance to FAMU to include ornamental street and sidewalk lighting and streetscape for an estimated $1 million, all for a total of $6.4 million over a 3-year fiscal period starting this year. We're proposing to enhance the residential South Side CRA with streetscape, a linear park, and other additional improvements that will increase property values and avoid gentrification. We ask the CRA board and city staff to move and help restore the legacy and charm of our historic village and continue to be the catalyst for change. Thank you all for consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Turnquist. Our next speaker?
I have Ms. Laura Johnson, agenda number item 6.01, followed by Mr. Adam Kay on agenda number item 5.02, followed by Mr. Fred Sweet on agenda number 5.02. Please state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Laura Johnson, 6228 Buck Run.
Good
I'm the
morning,
executive director of Southern Shakespeare Company. We are so very fortunate to live in a community that supports, nurtures, and grows some extraordinary large events and cultural events here. Each year, these events have a significant impact on our local economy and on tourism. These cultural events help to make Tallahassee a destination. For many years, there's been state, city, and county support for many of our large events, and this support has made Tallahassee a destination within the state of Florida and beyond. However, 2018 has been a very difficult year for the nonprofit sector, especially our local arts and cultural sector. The state of Florida Division of Cultural Affairs funding was slashed from $25 million to $2.9 million, and for those that can't do the math fast enough, I can't, it's a 90% cut in funding. Further, in order to fund more applicants, COCA cut its recommended awards for the FY19 year by 8%, and the TDC Visit Tallahassee grant funding was also limited this year. And then we were delivered another devastating blow that the CRA large event grant funding was in jeopardy. The CRA's special event funding helps to support the tourism industry, including local businesses and hotels. Visit Tallahassee's latest report shows that the capital city is an increasingly popular tourist destination with the economic impact of our large events such as Springtime Tallahassee, Lemoyne Chain of Parks, Word of South, and the Southern Shakespeare Festival, Free Shakespeare in the Park, generating more than $30 million to the county last year, according to Downs and St. Germain. I ask you all for your consideration to reinstate the CRA large event grant funding program for this upcoming fiscal year so that we can continue to bring these wonderful and important events to our community. Thank you all for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Our next speaker.
Mr. Adam Kay, your name and address for the record, agenda number 5.02.
Sure. Hi, my name is Adam Kay. I'm 602 McDonald Drive, soon to be of 734 Eugenia Street. I am one of the owners of Railroad Square. I've been in Tallahassee my whole life, on and off, but I'm a seventh generation Tallahassean, and I've owned Railroad Square for 16 years, third generation of my family to do so. Now, I grew up in this property. This is the northern end of Bond. We're not in Bond, but we are the northern neighbor of Bond. And my whole life, I have struggled with convincing the Tallahassee public to come south of the tracks. It has been a socioeconomic barrier, historically in Tallahassee and throughout the South. And now, FAMU Way has become that socioeconomic barrier. The city has done an amazing job with what they've done. It's amazing infrastructure, it's really beautiful, it's done very well for our property. But I see people all the time coming down and enjoying the amenities of FAMU Way, and they don't cross further south, they don't cross into Bond. I brought this problem up to a few different individuals and commissioners, and one of the things I was told was, why would anybody want to go into Bond? There's all this commercial activity, it's a residential neighborhood. It's not just residential, it's a place for budding entrepreneurship. As this gentleman said, there's a lot of opportunity to bring the hundreds of millions of dollars of economic activity, well, really hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in Gain Street in that area and the economic activity associated with that, south. It's already at Railroad Square. Now, all the amenities of FAMU Way are built on the northern side, not the Bond side. All the sidewalks and the lighting, it all stops right there at Bond. You can see it. It goes up the hill and then just stops, not going into Bond. My interest at Railroad Square is to not be on the south of the activity, not to be on the edge of the activity, to be in the center of the activity. And through that effort, through that desire of mine, I've got involved in the Bond neighborhood. In fact, I plan on relocating and living in the Bond neighborhood. As many of you probably know, some developers are building a Hyatt House Hotel on our site, on the corner of Railroad Avenue and FAMU Way. This is huge. This is a big deal. Right on the corner of Bond, there's going to be a 120-room Hyatt hotel. How do we get that development, that investment, continuing south of FAMU Way? And this is the plan this is how we start. I've been very fortunate to be working with the neighborhood improvement group, the founders. They've invited me to their team. I'm part of the land use committee. And one of the projects we're going to do is we're going to have a mural made by the students of Bonds and the kids in Bond, as well as the police officers, overlooking the playground where FAMU Way is right now. This is going to happen in a month. These are actionable items. The community is investing in it. Partners are investing in it. We're here to help, and we're huge supporters of it and everything we can do to help. Adam@railroadsquare.com is my email address. Please feel free to reach out to me, anybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker.
Mr. CRA Chair Richardson, technically this would be our last speaker. This last speaker card I actually had for public comments on agenda item would be Mr. Fred Sweet. I have subsequently received 4 additional speaker cards, and I'm not sure if we want to extend the time for those. As I understand it, each speaker wants to speak individually.
Yes.
All right, thank you
we'll
very much.
Extend them that time.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll have Mr. Fred Sweet, agenda item number 5.02, followed by Mr. Richardson Ashley on agenda number 502 as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Fred Sweet. I'm at 2206 Keith Street, Tallahassee. I've been a little torn about how to address these particular issues. We've been there about 40-some years, coming to school and staying. Mm-hmm. Bond was a very beautiful place when we came. It's still a very beautiful place if you're not there at night. One of the things that I discovered in observing what was going on in Bond was the fact that it looks a lot like the old plantation. And the problem with that is that we were basically marginalized, stuck into a corner, and our schools are training centers for servants. That's a problem. In order to solve a problem, you have to identify it. Bond has some very nice places that we would like to have bought, but we found that because of crime, because of folks who were sent to control us, we had a problem with getting people to come in there. Now, none of this is pretty, and we have to face the truth. We have to work on education. We have to work on making sure people appreciate what they're doing, make sure that they can communicate with the law enforcement and the lawmakers, you guys. What I would like to see is this agenda move forward with outreach. My wife, years ago, when she was in grad school, did outreach to the community, and we got people moving for a few minutes on some agenda items. I won't tell you exactly what happened, but let's say that we had some people who didn't want to go forward. We did what we could until one day someone tried to sell me drugs as I was taking my kid to school. He was about, 6 or 7. And so she decided to do something. They were making a living. I didn't care. No problem. And that was part of the problem. So we need to do outreach, we need to do beautification, and we need to re-examine what our schools are doing to our communities. I appreciate your time. It looks like we're starting another renovation cycle, and I hope this one works. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sweet. Our next speaker.
Mr. Richard Ashley, agenda number 5.02, name and address for the record, followed by Michaela Rogers, agenda number 502. Nadia Ross, agenda number 502 as well. 5.02, if you'll state your name and address for the record, you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Richard Ashley, 22542 San Miguel Avenue. Good morning, everyone. I am Richard Ashley, a third-year facilities management student at Florida A&M University, and I am from Montgomery, Alabama. I am here with the Cheshire chapter of Alpha Rho Chi Professional Fraternity, and we are presenting a proposal for the beautification of the Bond community. Many of us here understand the importance of safe, healthy communities. Those of us who have come from unfavorable living conditions understand the numerous challenges faced every day, and everyone should be aware of how this detracts from positive economic development. The present-day bond community has diverged greatly from what it once was. There was a time when the university was an integral part of the community. Students and professors lived and interacted in the neighborhood. Mr. Turnquest mentioned to us how going to college was expected of him and his peers. Now, in the bond community, instead of a clear path to higher education, the community members have to deal with crime and drugs, among other things. The relationship between Bond and FAMU is still present. Members of the community and students are determined to move forward in efforts to improve local surroundings. Not only is my organization working to restore Bond, but several other campus organizations such as the Real Estate Club and students from the Department of Social Work have taken time away from studies and leisure to ensure that the people of the Bond community receive the support and attention that they deserve. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ashley. Our next speaker.
I hope I'm enunciating this correctly. Mikhail Rogers, agenda number 5.02, followed by Nadia Ross, agenda number 502, and final speaker, and it will conclude the public comment section, Bria Taylor, agenda number 502. Name and address for the record, please, Ms. Rogers.
Michael Rogers, 228 Dixie Drive. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I am a fourth-year architecture student from FAMU, and I am also part of Alpha Rho Chi Professional Architecture Fraternity. And we have been working with Mr. Turnquest on creating this beautification, idea throughout the Bond community. So one of our ideas was a linear park, and this park would sit on the corner of Nassau and Holton Street. Right now, they're just empty lots. So instead of them just being there, we want to put something nice in that space for the whole community to enjoy. So we have a vision for this park to be a nice gathering space and have a place for children to play. We noticed there are a lot of children in this neighborhood and they just play in the street because that's all they have. So we want to give them something more and build up from there. So part of the amenities that are going to be in this park would be pavilions, so you can have celebrations, parties there. They would have grills, and they would be shaded, kind of like an indoor part, so it would be comfortable. You can have food, that kind of setting. There would also be a open field just for different recreational activities, a children's park, a playground. There would be a basketball court and a little fitness area. There's actually a walking trail that goes through our park, and it connects to the St. Mark's running trail, so that could be kind of like an extension of when people exercise. That could be like a starting or ending destination for when they're done with their exercises. There would also be a dog park, and that's just for the community who have pets. They can bring them there on their daily walks, and it just provides another opportunity for communicating with everyone in the community, and also their pets, playing around with each other. So we really have a vision to enhance the Bond community, both socially and visually, to give it something nice to look at, because right now people are kind of turning their heads away from it because I don't believe that they see the real untapped potential that's in this community, but there's so much of it. And us as architecture students, we're so excited to do that designing and build up from there because there's so much to build on. So with that being said, there is a group of us working together, and we all have contributions to this. As I mentioned earlier, there is a walking trail, so later there will be more mention of that and how that plays into this whole entire role. And some of you received booklets. You can look through those. There are pictures of our vision of the park and also the walkways, and there's also different items that you'll see and they'll be mentioned later. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for your enthusiasm. I can feel it in your presentation. Our next speaker.
Nadia Ross, and our final speaker behind that would be Ms. Taylor. Both are on agenda item number 5.02. Name and address for the record, please, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. My name is Nadia Ross. As Michael mentioned, we worked on a walkway. The walkway, we decided that it was best to place it over a drainage system. The approach was to be as least invasive as possible because you wanted, the drainage to be able to function properly. So we decided to go with a floating walk path, which includes wood slats. And on those wood slats, the horizontal wood slats would sit on vertical beams that would be on posts. So for water to run through, it's easy to percolate, and we don't intrude on what the function of that system is supposed to be. If you look at the picture where there's frames over the walk path, that is just to support the plants that would provide shade during the summer. And during the winter, those leaves would fall and it would allow maximum sunlight. It's important, the pathway is really important because it symbolizes the connection to FAMU and the bond community. It's important that the children see what their future can be. So it's strong in that way. So we're proposing that it connects all the way to Perry Street, which is a very active part of FAMU. We have a lot of events on that street. So, the most important part is to reconnect that sense of family that we lost with the bond community. And that's all I'm going to talk about today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next speaker.
Next speaker, Brianna Taylor, agenda number 5.02. You'll have 3 minutes, name and address for the record, and this will conclude our public comments last week.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Williams. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Brianne Taylor, hailing all the way from Oakland, California. I'm also a fourth-year architectural design student. I'll be speaking about the archway. So our design for the archway, it would be placed over the intersection of Perry and Gamble Street, which is right in front of the Village Student Housing on FAMU. Just from our research from archways, being architecture students, we know that they tend to highlight entrances into different parts of the community and kind of give, I guess, some historical reference to FAMU. Placing it in front of the village would allow it to be a highlight for entering into the community. People would pass by and see it. Children, freshmen arriving to campus right there at the village would see it, and it would kind of be a memory that they would hold with them forever. Our design for the archway, I don't know if you guys can see our study model here. Yeah, one of our group members wasn't able to be here, but he did this, so we really appreciate him for that. But the design for our archway was developed through the idea that a rattler wraps itself around what it desires most. And so in the center of this structure, we have a parallel to the eternal flame. If you've walked through FAMU's campus, you know that the eternal flame is always burning. So by placing it in the center here, we are just trying to represent that we want FAMU to be a place that will live on forever. Its history will live on forever. And by pushing it out into the community, we're hoping to make that connection between the community, like Nadia said, and the bond community and FAMU. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right. Well, let me say that I want to thank everyone for coming this morning and sharing your ideas and information with us. We're going to hear a more detailed report later in the agenda for those who spoke concerning the bond redevelopment and revitalization plan. And we hope that all of you all will take the opportunity to be involved in that process. I certainly want to thank Dr. Robinson and the faculty and staff from Florida A&M University, and especially these young people that have taken of their time. We know the demands, the academic demands on them, and they have taken out of their time to volunteer to be a part of this process in revitalizing a neighborhood that was once one of the most vibrant neighborhoods in the city of Tallahassee that sits adjacent to the Florida A&M University campus. So it's exciting what's happening, and we're certainly looking forward to the report that will be given later in the agenda. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Let me just say that I am a proud Rattler. I am so proud of our students. This week is finals week, and they are here engaged in our community, and they didn't just get here. They apparently have done quite a bit of work, and this is an impressive body of work that they have done. Mm-hmm. I applaud your creative efforts. I encourage you to continue, and don't just stop with the Bond community. Come on around. We have other communities that need your talent and expertise, including communities north of Bond, such as Frenchtown. So thank you all so very, very much. You've done an outstanding job.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. All right, we'll continue with the agenda. Ms. Manning, information items, item number 3, an update on current CRA programs and projects.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I think everyone is excited to get on to item 5.02, so I will be fairly brief on this. This is an update of all of the projects that the CRA did during 2018. What I'm going to do is just talk about a couple that are the large projects, and then if anybody needs any information about the smaller projects, please let us know. We'd be happy to provide it. We did 28 projects in 2018. 24 of them were in Frenchtown South Side, and the remaining ones were in the downtown. The largest project by far is the Cascades project, and here's a rendering of that project. Right now, as you probably know, we completed the sale of the property in October, and that gave the CRA $4 million to work with to do projects like the bond restoration. They've completed demolition of the existing buildings on the site except for the one that's being preserved, and they anticipate starting construction in 2019. Now, this is kind of exciting for the community because some of this construction contains elements that the CRA helped fund and the city so that people will have event space. The first part of the project that's going to go up is an AC hotel by Marriott, so we're excited about that. That will give us more ability to have larger conventions in the city and hopefully boost tourism. The other part that's going to, let's see if I have an arrow. I don't think I do. But if you look at the lighted part of the front building, that's a public event space, and that will be used by the public for all kinds of events. We've created a special flexible space that can be rented or utilized for all kinds of functions. Underneath it is space for storage and support for the amphitheater, and that's things like dressing rooms and facilities that will make it possible to bring in better acts, larger performances. So I think that's going to be a real benefit. We also are including 250 public parking spaces in the covered parking garage and a historical plaza that'll be on the Firestone site, which is behind this building and up by Gain Street. And it's sort of a corollary to the historical monument that we have out front on Jefferson Street. And we're hoping to create sort of a historic trail. So we're very excited about that, and we anticipate completion of those improvements in late 2020. The second phase will be construction of the townhomes and apartments, as well as the refurbished Bloxham Health facility, and we anticipate completion of that in 2021. Okay, the next one is 440 North Monroe, and that project, they just closed on their purchase of the property, and this is sort of a companion project to the refurbishment of the Envision Credit Union. The CRA helped fund this one. This is up across from the Hotel Duval on North Monroe. That's going to be 224 apartments and then about 1,300 square feet of retail. They're going to be submitting their construction plans probably in January, early January. So we're looking forward to that. They anticipate construction will start in mid-2019 and with completion about 2 years after that. And then another project that has a lot of people very interested, this is Washington Square, and this is a large hotel that's going up behind the courthouse. This is, again, in our downtown district. Washington Square has already begun construction. They started on August 6th. They're basically doing demolition and site clearance right now. The footings and the foundations, construction of a parking lot, which they will also have, that's actually started at the end of November and will continue for approximately the next 2 years. And they will anticipate completion of this in 2020. Now, that's going to be a Lowe's hotel. It'll have 267 rooms and 18,000 square feet of meeting space. So that, again, is going to further strengthen the ability of Tallahassee to bring some people into the downtown and bring some tourists downtown. Just to go quickly through the rest of these, I'm just going to say, one of our most powerful programs is the Business Facility Improvement Grant, and the majority of the projects that we did last year in Frenchtown and Southside are Business Facility Improvement Grants. And just to get in a plug for those of you who are renters or if you have a business that's in the Frenchtown Southside area, we offer a one-to-one grant, a matching grant for businesses, and please come see us. We're going to be reaching out again to businesses in that area this year. But it's a great program. If you want to improve the exterior of your property, then please come see us. But most of our projects every year are this type of thing. They're small, but over a period of time, they make a great impact. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Manning?
I do have one question.
Commissioner Williams-Cox?
In regards to the last CRA meeting and the direction for the return of the property regarding the Care Point issue, has that property been returned to the CRA?
We're waiting to close on that. That is moving forward, but it just closing takes forever.
Anticipated time frame?
Probably by the end of February.
Okay.
But that is moving forward.
Okay. And Commissioners, I would let you know that the three projects that Ms. Manning talked about, Cascades, 440 North, and Washington Square, are the last three major downtown district projects that the CRA will be involved with as we turn our attention now to the Frenchtown Southside CRA. Mayor Daley. Mayor Daley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your leadership on CRA.
Thank you.
Certainly appreciate it. Ms. Manning, it's been 8 years since I've had a chance to work with you on the CRA, and I'm looking forward to working with you as well.
Welcome back.
The three projects I'm looking forward to see coming online and being brought to fruition. I was wondering if you could help us, though. I was wondering if you wouldn't mind reaching out to the Tallahassee Board of Realtors and scheduling an information meeting with their leadership. I think with the three of us, and quite frankly, let's invite the county commission and the school board members. I would love to have those in the industry paint a picture of a snapshot of where we are with multifamily housing and student housing and what are the trends and where we're going. We've got a lot of product that's coming online. We get asked questions all the time. Is the market saturated? Is it not? We have empty units, yet we're still building. I think it would be helpful for all of us, and I think it would be fine to go to the Tallahassee Board of Realtors. They have the space to host us, and maybe do a couple-hour meeting. Let them present to us what they see in the market and where we're going, just to make sure that we're staying on track moving forward.
That sounds great. We'll set that up for you.
And again, I think we should publicly notice it, but also invite the county commission.
Let me
and the
do
school
this.
board.
Let me make sure, because we want to make sure that we have the support. I'm certainly supporting it, but we don't move forward unless we have at least the majority of the commission on board, and I'm seeing head nods, so thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Would you like a motion?
Oh, no. I
Okay.
don't think we need a motion, just to give staff direction, but it has to be from a majority of the board members. Okay.
One of the things that we do is we do coordinate routinely with groups like the Lenders Consortium Board of Realtors, so we look forward to this.
Great.
Okay. It's exciting. Commissioner Williams-Cox.
Ms. Manning, one of the things that was suggested to myself along the campaign trail was in regards to the businesses in Frenchtown and on South Side, because it's hard to run your business and then come out to a CRA meeting or to come down and do all the necessary paperwork sometimes to get the facade grants. If it's possible to maybe foster a relationship with some students from Florida A&M who may be in need of internship hours to help us reach those businesses by going to them to let them know what is available and help them to understand what the process is. I see that Mr. Keith Bowers is in the audience, and I know that he with the FAMU Small Business and their relationship with the School of Business, School of Architecture, or whomever, social work, would be willing to help us get the word to the business owners and put it where they can reach it without having to leave their businesses to take advantage of these opportunities. So I'm suggesting that we foster that type of relationship. It doesn't just have to be FAMU, it could be FSU. I know you need legs, you need boots on the ground to do it. So we need to find some young, energetic boots on the ground to walk around with their tablets or phones to help our businesses find this very needed resource.
Commissioner, we absolutely agree. And one of the things that we do is we actually go door to door and just walk, but taking advantage of having some students going with us and filling out the applications, I think is a great idea. So we had already planned an outreach in the first quarter of next year, and so we'll be sure to expand that, but that's a great idea.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Manning. All right. Item 4 is consent item. It is approval of the minutes from the September 12th, 2018 CRA board meeting and public hearing. Is there a motion?
Move. Second.
There's a motion by Mayor Daley, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion is approved. Item 5, the Greater Frenchtown Southside District Policy Formation and Direction. Item 5.01 is a proposed revision to the CRA agreement terms with the Frenchtown Redevelopment Partners. Are you going to do that?
Yes, sir.
Rick, okay, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners. So a little bit of history. You know, the CRA purchased the properties that the former shelter and Frenchtown Renaissance Community Center properties a few years ago in an effort to relocate the shelter out of the Frenchtown community. The long-term effort was also to redevelop those properties. A few years ago, working with the Frenchtown, a variety of Frenchtown groups, we entered an agreement with the Frenchtown Redevelopment Partners to do analysis, market analysis, and studies of those properties. In July of this year, the CRA board approved a $281,660 grant to the Frenchtown Redevelopment Partners to go out and do studies. 7 specific pieces, 7 specific tasks were in that study, and they had very specific amounts assigned to them. As they're working their way through this process, they've now decided they need a little flexibility in how they want to allocate those funds. So one project might not actually be $64,000, it might be a little bit more, a little bit less, and they want to be able the ability to move that $281,660 within those 7 tasks. So it won't change the bottom line of the grant amount. It doesn't change the tasks. They just want the flexibility to move those funds around within there to meet their needs. And that's what we're asking you guys to do today, to authorize that change.
Okay, is there a motion to approve staff recommendation?
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Williams-Cox, seconded by the mayor. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Motion is adopted.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
Before we move off that item, because I know we'll spend a lot of time and celebrate the next item that's coming on the agenda, but while we're speaking about the Frenchtown in particular, I want to make sure that everybody knows that this is also a priority of this commission and of this CRA, and very rarely do we get to speak because we have to be at a publicly noticed meeting. I want you to know that I have been working with the city manager, and at the next city commission meeting, I will be bringing you an agenda item that formally transfer the title of the land underneath the NAACP building to the NAACP. If you recall, the city and the county many years ago worked together to physically move the Dr. Charles Evans building to Brevard Street, but the city owns the land underneath it while the NAACP owns the building. And I think it is a very appropriate action to kick off the new commission to consider transferring the title of the land from the city of Tallahassee to the NAACP. We are working with that. I've been working with the NAACP. That item will be coming to our next city commission meeting in January.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mayor?
Chair.
Commissioner Williams-Cox?
And since the mayor opened this up to continue with Frenchtown, let me just ask Roxanne if you would speak to the issue regarding, I believe, the sale of some property. I think we had a discussion about where those funds were. We want to be clear to let the folks in Frenchtown know where this resource lies.
Are you referring to the property that the CRA owns in Frenchtown?
The $500,000. Okay.
Oh, it's city property, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, the property from the standard.
Yes, Commissioners, when the city sold property across from the Renaissance Center for the standard development, the City Commission directed staff to put that money aside for the Frenchtown visioning plan. That has been set aside for that. The visioning committee will be meeting Friday. Their job is to start setting their priorities. Once their priorities are done, we're going to be moving forward and spending that money according to their priorities.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
That's great.
All right, item 5.02, what we've all anticipated this morning, the adoption of the Greater Bond Neighborhood First Plan. Ms. Manning?
Okay, I'm just going to kick this off with a few brief comments.
Okay.
CRA is very excited to be at this point. For the past 15 years, CRA has been working to do large projects and build up our revenue and build up our reserves with the intention, because this is how this works, we start out with nothing, we build up our money, and at some point, we're able to do projects like this, which improve the community. We don't have to worry about improvement in property tax values. We just do good work. So we're very excited. The approach that was taken by the city on this project is, I think, one of the best examples of how to do community improvement, with leadership from the bond community, with Talithia Edwards and Rhett Turnquist, and leadership from city staff and Cynthia Barber and John Baker. They've put together a plan that let the neighborhood set the priorities, identified specific projects that the CRA can fund. And that's what we're here to start off today. I know that there are a lot of people from our other neighborhoods, Providence, Frenchtown, and what I'd like to do is just take a second to reassure those folks too.
Sure.
You will. I know Frenchtown has done a similar plan, and they will be coming to us very soon for similar funding. And between the city and the CRA, based on all the work we've done over the years, these plans will be funded, as well as South City. We know we've got some big requests coming up there, and Providence. Right. But this is our new focus. We're very excited about it. I want to reassure you, it'll be over the course of just a few years to get this work done, because it takes forever to do construction projects. But we'll be able to do it, and we're looking forward to it. So I'd like to introduce John Baker and Cynthia Barber, and they will take you forward.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Good morning, Ms. Barber.
Good morning. Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, and all assembled. Roxanne did take a few of my comments, but I think they deserve repeating. I'm pleased to be here today in support of the Greater Bond Neighborhood Plan. As you know, it is a comprehensive plan that involves intense engagement of the bond community, the city of Tallahassee, and our community partners from Florida State University and other community partners. I think what makes this plan so special, number one, is it's driven from the community. This isn't a plan that we took to the community and said, here's what we think your priorities ought to be, and here's what we think you ought to be focused on. Ironically, the priorities they've selected are very consistent with the ones that the commission has adopted. And in my mind, that's because these are things that any neighborhood would not only want, but would deserve in terms of being being safe, beautification, having some level of economic development and infrastructure in their communities. It's what any community would want to be a thriving community. Again, this is their plan, and what was key about it is when you bring all of these various, what some would believe would be competing interests to the table, but being able to bring them together to focus on how to make this community better, not only for our current generation, but future generations. And the beauty of the process for those of us who've gotten to watch it is that the children of these adults are participating in the process. And they speak with passion about what they want to see in their community. So not focusing on how do I grow up and get out of bond, but how do I grow up and contribute? And what can I do from where I sit right now? So I think that's been extraordinary to watch. Just a little bit of the background, and John will go over the details of the plan. I want to just give you a little bit of history on how we got here. Back in 2016, when faced with an increasing crime rate in this community and really a recognition that this isn't something that we could simply police ourselves out of. What can we do to make some substantial change in our community that not only involves traditional policing, but also incorporates our philosophy of community police and engage our community? So the city of Tallahassee established the Public Safety Collective, which is the first time that I know that this has been done, that you pull all of the agency heads from all the law enforcement agencies locally, but also the state attorney, the U.S. attorney, and the Florida Highway Patrol, Crime Stoppers, and other community partners engage in how do we start to tackle this issue proactively and collaboratively from a public safety perspective. So when they formed now about 2 years ago, the first effort that they implemented was the Neighborhood Public Safety Initiative, which is what this bond plan and process was born out of. And basically, that's a recognition that as even pulling all of the law enforcement agencies together, we still cannot build the kind of sustained neighborhoods and sustained change and progress that we want and need unless we involve the people who live in the communities. So that's where this public safety initiative came from. It started in the Frenchtown community, and I too want to reiterate the neighborhood affairs team, I think, have done an outstanding job. They're working not only in the Bond community. This effort started in Greater Frenchtown and Griffin Heights, and we're still connected with them. We're working with the Florida State Urban and Regional Planning School over in Griffin Heights right now. Our plan for next year is to move into the South City area and also to reconnect with Frenchtown to make sure we help usher their plan into implementation as well. But just really want to recognize the team, outstanding team of neighborhood volunteers who have pulled this plan together. And the one thing additional, I think, and I've said that there's one thing, two things, three things, several special things about this plan, but typically you are hearing people come to you to tell you what they want you to do and what they expect for you to do. And the plan is really void of anything that they plan to do. Well, this plan is different. There is as much, if not more, in terms of activity that this team has comprised in the plan that they will get done. They are already doing it. They started working about a year or so before we actually arrived in the community. So this plan reflects all the various activities and things that they will be doing. And I think unless you have a plan that incorporates that, you could be placing money in a process where you don't have the support structure to have that sustained change. This plan is different. They are working with all the various agencies, law enforcement agencies, very directly themselves, partnering with them to create activity in their neighborhood on a sustained basis. And with that said, I'll ask John to, did you have a question for me? Ask John to come forth and review the plan for you.
Thank you, Ms. Barber.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to present the Greater Bond Neighborhood First Plan. As Ms. Barber and the speakers before have mentioned, this has been a very exciting, very engaging process for us, the neighborhood affairs staff, to work with and to provide a structure. We did not necessarily go with the ideas. We provided a structure, facilitated the process, and helped them to develop their neighborhood plan. But before I go any further, I'd just like to, those who are from the Bond community, a stakeholder, resident, just hold your hand up so they can see. This is the showing that we get on this morning to show you their engagement in the process. As a neighborhood group, they have come a long way in organization and in working together. And like I said on Monday night, they have the signs to prove it. In 2017, they were the city's neighborhood of the year. Earlier this year, they were the county's Neighborhood of the Year. In 2016, Tallahassee, who is the president, was recognized as the Neighbor of the Year. So they do have the signs to prove it. A couple of things that I want to say about these plans. There are a couple of guiding principles that we as staff working with them use to guide our efforts. The first one that I'd like to say, this is citizen-based. As Ms. Barber said, we did not go to Bond to tell them what their community needs. In fact, before we got there, they had already identified 3 of the issues that they'd like to work on. And so our efforts was to facilitate that process. So we're talking about a true citizen-based effort. Next thing, it was collaborative. Several partners were brought to the table wanting to hear not just, the older resident, but the younger resident, as well as renters, homeowners, very collaborative process. Supporting that, it was representative. We have people who are homeowners as well as renters, students who were engaged in the process. Solution seeking. Yes, there were a period of time when they complained about what had not happened in 50 years, and we had to hear it. But then they get to the point where they wanted to bring forth solution and to address the issues in their community. And one of the principles that I'm very proud of, it is actionable. This is not a plan to plan. This is a plan which says our community needs beautification, and here are our ideas to address issues of beautification within our community. So this whole Neighborhood First effort came out of the Public Safety Collective, Neighborhood Public Safety Initiative, and as Ms. Barber explained it a little bit, it's a coming together of all the local law enforcement agency here, and a part of their effort is community engagement. NPSI is that community engagement. Through NPSI, we focus on 3 major areas: crime prevention and education, community beautification, community empowerment, and volunteerism. This effort was launched in Greater Frenchtown, Griffin Heights. We then moved to the Bond community. And as we got there, we recognized that rather than just the traditional things that some of the things we did in Griffin Heights, Frenchtown, we needed to bring a planning effort to help this neighborhood to address their issues. I'd like to recognize the leaders of this effort. One of them's not here today, but Rhett Turnquist. Rhett, could you just raise your hand? Rhett was the co-chair of the entire effort. Jackie Perkins. Jackie was chair of the priority area focus on neighborhood safety. Willeen is not here this morning, but she was head of community beautification, and we already mentioned Rhett heading up land use, and Talithia Edwards, the neighborhood president, economic development and resident empowerment. But I don't want you to get the idea that these were the only folks who were involved in the process. This cube here represent the number of people who were engaged in the process. I'm sure if you look up there, perhaps you'll see your name somewhere in the cube because you were there in the process as well. So just a little bit about the layout of the plan. The plan addresses 4 priority areas: community beautification, economic development and resident empowerment, land use, neighborhood safety. Those are the 4 areas that they chose to address. When we got there, they had already selected beautification, land use, neighborhood safety, and crime prevention. During our first kickoff meeting, one of the residents there, Mother Richardson, said, hey, we need to address economic development, and the leaders embraced that issue, and it became a part of their planning effort. For each of the priority areas, we have identified a goal, and the goals speak to the broad overview of where they wanted to go with that issue. And then we have specific neighborhood concern. These are the things that they like to address relating to each of the priority areas, and then they express their desired outcome. For each desired outcome, they develop strategies. Then they move from there to action item. Over to the right, you'll see that icon there, blueberry, and that you'll see throughout the plan. And we have used that to identify action items that we're calling low-hanging fruit. These are action items that can be implemented with little or no planning, little or no money, and throughout the plan, there are a lot of low-hanging fruit. Ms. Barber talked about their investment in this process. These are things that they are going to be doing on their own. And this is a very empowered group that we have here. They're across this community, meeting with folks who can make things happen on behalf of their community. I think this is one of the difference with this community. I've done neighborhood planning in several other neighborhoods across the city, but these neighborhood leaders, they're empowered, they know where to go, who to talk to get things moving in their community. Very proud of that effort. To provide you a little bit of context, and I know all of you are very much familiar with Bond, but to just provide you just a brief amount of context of the neighborhood, I'm going to ask Ms. Leanne Watts-Williams, who served as the neighborhood liaison for the Bond neighborhood and all of Southside neighborhood, just to give you a little bit regarding the demographics and the geography of the community.
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Mayor, city commissioners, and the respective city leadership, thank you for the opportunity to come before you today to share with you a bit of information on the Greater Bond neighborhood. As many of you know, it's located in the southwest quadrant of our beautiful city of Tallahassee. It is home to several subdivisions: Medical Commons, Villa Mitchell, Normal School, Saxon Street, Cherry Hill, Stoudemire, and Leon Arms. It is bordered to the north by FAMU Way, the south Orange Avenue, to the east Wanish Way, Perry Street, and Railroad Avenue. To the west, Lake Bradford. So some of you affectionately call Greater Bond the heart and soul of the South Side due to its close proximity to FAMU FSU, Innovation Park, Tallahassee International Airport, downtown Tallahassee, and we feel that this area is ripe for the implementation of many of the action items included in the plan. A few of the assets and amenities in the Greater Bond neighborhood: we have Speed Spencer Stevens Park, the Walker Ford Community Center, the St. Mark's Trail. We have the Bond Elementary School, as well as several businesses and the churches that have partnered with us on the development of this plan. The Neighborhood Association is active and energized in its efforts, and we feel that some of the greatest assets of the neighborhood are the people. Here we have some of the pioneers from Greater Bond. Mr. Charles Howard, one of the first Black African-American owned construction companies in Tallahassee, who built many of the homes in Greater Bond, as well as the Frenchtown area. We have the Perkins. They own several businesses in the Greater Bond area, including one of the first service stations. We have our faith leaders here who have been engaged in the process. Greater Mount Zion Primitive Baptist Church, Flipple Chapel, and St. John Missionary Baptist Church. Major James Morgan is a product of the Greater Bond neighborhood, and he's a lifelong resident of the neighborhood and one of Leon County's first African-American deputies. And also here with us today, we have Dr. Henry Lewis, who grew up in the neighborhood, who was the former dean of the FAMU College of Pharmacy, former interim president of Florida A&M University, as well as former president of Florida Memorial University. Also, you will see a picture here is the wonderful community action team of Greater Bond who has pulled this plan together. Ms. Talithia Edwards, Ms. Jackie Perkins, Rhett Turnquest, and Willeen Footman in her absence. So a few of the demographics related to Greater Bond I'd like to share with you is the population, a little over 3,100 residents in the Greater Bond neighborhood compared to 191,000 here in Tallahassee. We have the median household income in Greater Bond of $17,295 compared to about $42,000 for the entire city of Tallahassee. We realize that those are some of the issues that exist in Greater Bond, and we plan to address those in the plan through the economic development action items. Since 2000, the Greater Bond neighborhood has seen a growth in population, meaning that people are moving to the neighborhood. Since 2000, there have been about 600 residents to move to the neighborhood, but although they have seen people to make residents call Greater Bond home, the residents' home ownership in Greater Bond has decreased by about 11%. So 60% of the residents in Greater Bond are renter occupied. And we plan to address this issue in the affordable housing strategies listed in the plan. With that being said, I will turn it back over to Mr. John Baker. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leanne.
All right, so I'm going to just walk you very quickly through the 4 priority areas and the issue concern here for community beautification. The idea here is to improve the overall appearance of the community through redevelopment activities, rehabilitation, and landscaping. They have identified 4 major issues for community beautification. The first that you'll see there is streetscaping, inadequate streetscaping. Next is illegal dumping, whether from residents in the community or people who pass through the community and actually dump stuff there as well. The other issues, excessive litter, and this is in the public right-of-way as well as in people's front yard. And the 4th is dealing with dilapidated structures of home, businesses, as well as properties. To address these issues, Bond has come up with several beautification strategies. These strategies speaks to the adoption or the development of a strategic beautification plan that would include neighborhood signage, a linear park and targeted streetscaping, removing illegal dump site, a neighborhood-wide litter campaign, as well as educating residents and businesses as to how they can beautify their front yard and other visible spaces. The next priority area is economic development and resident empowerment. And here the focus is on helping Bond residents to become financially secured and to support the growth of neighborhood business through improved access to educational, employment, and entrepreneurial resources. Residents there believe that the neighborhood can be a very good place for people not only to raise their family, but also to develop small business as well. They have identified 5 major concerns for this priority area. And first is lack of targeted areas for neighborhood scale development. They'd like more commercial areas, but those commercial areas should be targeted of a neighborhood scale. Then they believe there is a lack of opportunities for people to develop businesses. What are the existing resources, and how can the resident access those resources? Next is dealing with lack of educational, job training resources as well. And number 4 is dealing with affordable support services. So while people are out to work, what type of services do they have to take care of their children? So we're talking about childcare here, we're talking about daycare here, we're talking about those support services that would undergird the family and help them to become financially sustainable. Then 5 is dealing with home ownership. And going through on the land use, which was also another major concern here's some of the strategies that they came up with. They'd like to identify specific locations within the community where businesses can take place, where they can develop new business and perhaps deal with some of the issues dealing with existing businesses as well. Provide mechanisms so that young people can get their GED, and this is where collaboration with programs like Tempo would come in and increase awareness of opportunities to develop some of the vacant properties there in the community. Some are owned by the city. Can those be made available to develop affordable housing as well? On the land use here, the goal is to integrate the land uses here. Bonn has always been a village. You know, one could walk down the street to a corner store to get something. But as, you know, the community grows and we begin to separate land use, then we get into the conflict with land use. The idea here is how can we address some of these conflicts, deal with incompatible land use, which is one of the concerns here in the community. There are a number of commercial business. For example, there's Top Flight, and that has issues with for the adjacent residents. How do we address those issues? Another concern here was vacant lot, dilapidated structures. Thankfully, we are getting a movement on addressing some of these. Connectivity, wanted to connect to the many assets, to the many resources around them. FAMU, the St. Mark's Trail, providing identify bicycle as well as pedestrian access to these resources. Lack of visible appeal in street. We talk about the streetscape. Then there's a bunch of strategies that they have developed to address these land use concerns. They want to preserve the single-family nature of Bonn. The core of Bonn is designated RP or RP2, and they'd like to preserve that at the same time allowing for a mixture of neighborhood-scale commercial development at various locations within the community. On to the next priority areas. This deal with neighborhood safety and crime prevention. And the idea here is to create a safe environment, not only for the resident, but for people who visit Bonn. As Ms. Perkins will tell you, we can do all the other action items in the other three priority areas, but unless we get a handle on neighborhood safety and crime prevention, we still have a problem. So this priority area seeks to address the things that they can do as neighbors. How can they become engaged in the process to make their community safe? So the number one concern is the lack of a proactive approach to addressing criminal activity. How can we as neighbors get engaged in the process? Then there's a perception that law enforcement is not available, and they want to take that on to say to the neighbors, hey, we do have a cop squad operating from Summit Williams Service Center. How can we address that perception? All right, and here's getting neighbors involved in crime watch programs. And again, same thing, dealing with abandoned and derelict buildings. Not only is it a community beautification issue, it is a public safety, neighborhood safety issue. Several different strategies to address this, anywhere from the establishment of a vibrant, actively engaged crime watch, bringing various educational programs to the community, to engage the community and to foster a very positive relationship with law enforcement. All right, these are several of the partners that are involved in the process here. So they have cultivated several partners across the community. Some of the key action items, and you'll hear some more of them, streetscape. And here you see a rendering of what some of the streets can be in Bonn. And the Speed Spencer Stephen Park, connecting that to Tallahassee Junction through a linear park. Finding and identifying neighborhood corridors. For example, Floral Street, there are several businesses on there. How about opening up that a little bit more to provide that as a designated commercial area within the community? All right, housing facade grant. I think Red perhaps mentioned this, helping homeowners fix up their homes to deal with that beautification issue. Dealing with the incompatible, non-conforming land use. Again, here's where they'll work with the planning department to come up with policies and structures to address that issue. Crime prevention, developing a comprehensive crime prevention and education plan. Fostering positive relationship with our law enforcement agencies. So the ask today is for the CRA board to adopt the plan. The plan, as cost out by the community, total around $6.4 million. We're asking you today to adopt the plan, to allocate $500,000 to begin that work, as well as to direct us to go back and work further with the community, along with the various agencies listed there, city department, blueprint, to come up with a refined cost proposal for the other rest of projects within the plan. How would the $500,000 be spent? $300,000 would get us started on the linear park, $150,000 towards the housing facade grant, $30,000 for enhancement in the Speed Spencer Stephen Park, and $20,000 for engagement around these neighborhood infrastructure projects. And so we're open for any questions that you may have of us. But before I do, there are 3 neighborhood residents I would like to bring up to speak very briefly with you. Ms. Deletia Edwards, followed by Jackie, and then Dr. Lewis.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Ms. Perkins will come first.
Jackie, if you could just, Ms. Perkins, if you could give us your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. I'm Jackie Perkins. I am a Bond resident, but my address is 3437 Blue Jay Drive. Mr. Baker just said that we were going to give brief comments. Mine won't be brief, but I'll try to be as succinct as possible. Because you know what happens when you extemporaneous speaking coupled with purpose and passion is called preaching. I'm not going to preach today because they've asked me not to. We've had to speak at a number of events or before several groups for the last few days. And I'm here today in my capacity of chair of the Neighborhood Safety and Crime Prevention Committee. As Ms. Barber said, well, before I say anything, I just want to thank her. I want to thank Ms. Barber for all the assistance she's given us, all of the leadership. I want to thank the city manager, thank the commissioners, many of whom came out to take a look at our neighborhood when we first got started. And Mayor Daley, I want to thank you for coming out to our presentation a couple of months ago. But I'm here this morning to make sure that I don't preach. I have prepared some comments so that I will share those with you. And I want to thank you again for affording us the opportunity to speak so that we can share some information that I believe will be enlightening to you as you evaluate and assess the action plan that's before you. This is a comprehensive plan, and it essentially presents or provides a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach to resurrecting and revitalizing the Greater Bond neighborhood, which, by the way, is one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city of Tallahassee. And as Ms. Barber and John Baker said, that this started with the NPSI, Neighborhood Public Safety Initiative. And in my former life as the internship Director of Criminal Justice, I've had an opportunity to work with a number of agencies, local, state, and federal. And as I chaired the committee, I wanted to make sure that we had it staffed with individuals who got it, who understand how important it was to make sure that we needed to take our community back. I called one of my former colleagues and friends who I've known since she was a little girl, and that's Miss Donaldson, Katisa Donaldson. And she brought an army because we're at war and we needed an army. And I want to thank her for bringing those students. I want to thank the dean for being here, my former dean, before I retired with FAMU, because she has allowed her to continue to do the work that we need her and the students to do. I am a lifelong resident of Tallahassee. I'm a property owner and a stakeholder in this community. I grew up in Bond. My parents owned and operated businesses in Bond. They were civil rights leaders. We went to church in Bond, and I attended Bond, NIMS, Rickards, and Rickards High School. Like my parents, I graduated from FAMU. For those of you who don't know, Bond was once a thriving, self-contained neighborhood that was home to many businesses, barber and beauty shops, eateries, and there were actually, a lot of people don't know, we actually had dry cleaners. We had laundromats. We were self-contained. We had everything we needed. The residents included FAMU administrators, professionals, students, as well as other hardworking, law-abiding citizens, some of whom were pillars of this community. They were successful businessmen, educators, law enforcement officers, musicians, civil rights activists, and other revered icons. We even have in our midst a former Bond resident who became the dean of FAMU School of Pharmacy, and he's already been acknowledged, and that is Dr. Henry Lewis, who has joined us, and he's our elder statesman. Unfortunately, our once vibrant and thriving neighborhood devolved into one of the most blighted and crime-ridden areas in Tallahassee. Iconic neighborhood grocery stores that were once convenient markets for residents to buy food and staples for their families became havens for drug dealers, for people to purchase guns and to perform other illicit activities. Nefarious and criminal activities such as open drug sales, prostitution, gambling, drinking, public intoxication, gang violence, assaults, battery, and yes, murders even occurred in Bond. My brother actually identified 2 perpetrators who killed. There were 2 murders right there on my mother's street, and that was a shame. It became unbearable. Over the years, there were many who challenged the status quo and made valiant attempts to clean up the neighborhood. While their efforts resulted in some arrest and movement of criminals, they were fragmented and they were not sustained. Recently, however, we established a much more forceful and committed coalition, which included the Greater Bond Neighborhood Association, neighborhood churches, residents, and other stakeholders. And we decided that we were going to take our neighborhood back. We joined forces with the City of Tallahassee, Neighborhood Affairs, and the Neighborhood Public Safety Initiative, and the Collective. We supported the police department and its community policing efforts, and the security cameras and hotspots in certain areas of the neighborhood. People started saying something when they saw something. Not only did they say something, they started to do something. Guess what? It's working. One of the main areas that we had, and of course, Commissioner, I know that you and Commissioner Cox-William and you all have been to that store. You understand, and you know what it used to be like. The store is closed now. We're hoping that a new business will take its place. No one standing on the corner openly drinking beer, openly selling drugs, or selling their bodies, because all of that was taking place at that facility or at that grocery store. We're making the case, and we're moving at an accelerated pace to make Bond and the South Side a better place for all to live, work, and play. And I describe Bond as the historic heart and soul of the South Side, in which we should all take pride. We are resolute in our determination to restore, resurrect, and revitalize our neighborhood to its former status. What you have in front of you, and I'm about to close, one of the things that you have to do when you say you're going to do something is to do it. You have to take action. What you have in front of you is a work plan. It's not the action plan. It provides for you a lot of the programs and initiatives are synopsized there, along with some of the partnerships that have already been established. I believe in getting things done, and the people who are on my committee are going to do the same. We can't save the world. God already sent his son to do that. but we're going to do the best we can. We have to work on our neighborhood from the inside out. And I've mentioned in many of the conversations I've had that in our community, we have a complicated relationship with the police. What you have in front of you is a two-pronged approach. It is to actually work on our community, work on our citizens, work on our youth especially, to help them to become the leaders that they are. Because if you're not a leader, you're what? You're a follower. And we have too many young people who follow, their friends and others involved in criminal activity. So we want them to become leaders. But we also have to make sure that we strengthen the relationships that we have between the African American community and law enforcement. Adam came up here and talked to you about that mural. It might sound like that's nothing, but it is a subliminal method or manner of getting people together to do something positive. And we're going to do it. We have young people who really never have the opportunity to have people to tell them that they can do something. Dr. Donna Hayes and Dr. Henry Lewis, assisted by Ms. Talithia Edwards, are going to lead another part of this, which is not presented to you, which is to work on our failing schools. We met with the superintendent about 2 weeks ago, because you know what? If your schools are failing, it doesn't matter if we do all of these things that we're talking about doing. Nobody wants to live in your community. If you have an F school, you can have beautiful streets, you can have all these other things, but if your schools are failing, then nobody wants to come. We want people to come and live in Bond and be happy and feel proud to be in that neighborhood. Again, we are working from the inside out. We are trying to strengthen relationships. We have people who say, I don't want the police. I hate the police. But when somebody breaks in their home, somebody steals their car, they don't call Pastor Vaughn. They call the police. So we've got to work on that. And as I close, I will say, we haven't just sat around, fussed, grumbled, and complained. We've adhered to the process. We've done the work necessary to effect transformational change. We've got a plan. We've got proposed projects, programs, and initiatives. Wishing, hoping, and talking doesn't effectuate change. Change requires action. We implore you, and we respectfully request that you take action this morning, approve our plan and the necessary funding to implement it. Let's invest in Bond, in the future of Bond and our community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Ms. Edwards?
Good morning. I'm Talithia Edwards. My address is 1802 Saxon Street. I did have something prepared, but we have lived and breathed this for over a year, and as the president, I've served since founding the Neighborhood Association in 2016. So I know this like the back of my hand. And through this process, I've been really schooled about the history of Bond and where we've come from. I came to Tallahassee as a student of Florida A&M about 19 years ago. And I've heard great history stories, but I have my own story about Bond before I even knew it was called Bond. I was a freshman on campus at Florida A&M. This when the university was busting at the seams. And so after freshman year, you were not offered, housing. And I remember riding, it was the 14 at the time, and I saw these apartment complexes that I would later learn was the project, so a Cocoa Villa. And I got off that bus and I went to the housing office and I asked, I said, hey, I'm a student at Florida A&M. I'm originally from Miami and I'm not going to have anywhere to stay if next year I won't have anywhere to stay. And I can't afford, these high-end college places. And so if you don't allow me to stay here, I'm going to have to go back home to Miami and I probably will be nothing. And so that story starts off, and Mr. Nelson, I don't know where he is now, but he afforded me the opportunity to live in an apartment which is set for families, low income. I didn't understand that structure at the time. But I tell that story. I lived there. I tutored students. I did whatever they needed me to do in order to stay there. My rent was $40. That afforded me the opportunity to become a graduate. Later, marrying my husband and buying our house on Saxon Street. So I tell that story to tell that Bond has, as you've heard before, has a rich history of embracing people and building up, right? And so, but it also has a story of people not wanting to come in. And through this process, through resident-led engagement of this process, what we've done is we've created a comprehensive plan that can in turn be a model for this community. You've seen our priority areas. You've seen what we're asking for. And this conversation is not just about infrastructure and building. It's about equity. Tallahassee is a city divided where we know one side of the city has something, the other side hasn't. Bond has been a community that has never been invested in by this CRA. And so we've asked a $6.4 million investment into our neighborhood, which is a small investment to create equitability for this neighborhood. Ms. Perkins talked a lot about vision, and you heard a lot about that, so I don't want to talk a long time about it, but I just want to let you know from a resident perspective, this has been engaging. You saw all the names that were up on that screen as John talked about the cube that is gotten involved. But again, we're asking for $500,000 as a start, but we need that $6.4 million in order to really invest in this community and to push this plan and to make all of the work that we've done a reality. So we ask that you consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. Dr. Lewis? As Dr. Lewis comes up, I want to let you all know what my relationship with him is. He was my landlord for a number of years, would eventually become my neighbor, and sold my wife and I the property where our home sits to this day. So I owe so much to Dr. Lewis, and was just so happy to see that he was a part of this effort because I knew his involvement with the Bond community as well. Good morning, Dr. Lewis.
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Henry Lewis. I live at 6096 WW Kelly Road here in Tallahassee. To the chairman, to Mr. Mayor, to commissioners, and to all our city staff and others here. I come as a product, as you heard, of Bond. My family moved to Bond in 1944 when my grandmother built a house on Holton Street. My father built a house on Saxon Street in 1948. I was born in that house in 19...
As the elder statesman.
As the one with the grayest hair on this committee. I don't mind, 1950, and I'm proud of it. But my dad and my uncle were passionate about this community. You heard it. He talked about Mr. Howard. There was another gentleman, Mr. Diamond Hester, who built houses in this community. I work with my dad and my uncle. I work with Mr. Hester in building a number of houses in the greater Bond area. In fact, I built 6 houses in the Tuskegee neighborhood, that 5 of which went to first-time home buyers in this area. And I still own the houses that my dad built in the greater Bond area. So I'm passionate about it, and I'm committed to it as well. Mr. Sweet and Ms. Perkins talked about the schools. Bond School was a vibrant school, and still can be, and should be, and must be. Unless the schools are strong, as she said, community is not strong. And we're going to work with the Bond elementary schools in particular, and NIMS too, to make sure that that pipeline does not end from Bond School to Appleyard Drive. Because that's what's happening in too many instances right now. And that's why this initiative grew out of a crime initiative, but morphed into a better vision for how Bond can and should be. I've worked with 4 neighborhoods in developing redevelopment or renovation plans The Greater Bond Neighborhood First Plan is the most thorough, comprehensive, community-driven, and detailed I've had the occasion to be involved with. In addition to the outstanding work that the School of Social Work students, I want to just again say how proud I am of them, what they did in the School of Architecture. Dr. Tom Taylor from FSU's Urban Planning Department was a master in facilitating all of these diverse interests that morphed into this plan. And I think through a lot of sweat equity and a lot of activities that surrounded this day of deliberations, they came forth with one voice. And I would say in my almost 70 years, this is the first time that this voice has come from the Bond community to downtown Tallahassee in this manner. Jackie Perkins, who spoke earlier, her father operated the former Gulf Station on the corner of Osceola and Wanish Way. There were four of us who used to hang out. Her brother and I finished high school together, and we were the four Musketeers. I won't say what we did, but he admonished us over 50 years ago to plan methodically and execute precisionally. And Jackie brought that process of thinking to this plan, and I even embraced it. You heard the passion that this group has come to you with. But it's not just passion. It's with objectivity, with thorough planning, and with the expected outcomes to make Bond indeed a better place. This plan was closely coordinated with numerous city staff and city departments. As I came to virtually every meeting since I joined them in March, all of these departments were there talking about what they can do and should do as part of this comprehensive planning effort. And while we totally realize and understand that the final cost analysis and sequencing will have to be performed by city staff, the budget of $6.4 million was derived in consideration and coordination with city staff estimates of costs associated with trees, lights, sidewalks, pavement, infrastructure costs associated with the implementation of FAMU Way. Because the 5 streets that Rhett Turnquist talked about, we want to make look like FAMU Way looks right now in the Bond community, because that's the way Bond used to look. The proposed budget is for 3 fiscal years that contemplates certain infrastructure improvements already planned for this area of the city. We also realize that all funding might not probably come and should not even come from CRA funds. However, the source, the needs of the ground community are critical and vital to addressing some of the challenges this neglected part of the city has experienced. The CRA was conceived to address the very blighted conditions that the Bond plan seeks to remedy. Commissioners, I close by respectfully asking you to accept the Greater Bond Neighborhood First Plan, authorize staff to identify, coordinate with community and community implementation chairs the 3 phases of the plan at a level funding of $6.4 million over the 3 fiscal years. We come before you not with a revitalization plan, but a transformation plan. We realize that even the $6.4 million is not going to solve all of the conditions that blight Bond right now, but it is a start. And we're asking the city to partner with the Greater Bond community to make Bond an all-American community and an all-American city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. All right, commissioners, we are open for a motion on options 1, 2, and 3. Is there a motion?
May I have a question first?
Yes, ma'am.
Before being comfortable with the motion? We have before us 3 options, and I am trying to understand which of these options will give us the $500,000 to start and a commitment of resources to take us to 6.4, up to 6.4 over 3 years.
That's what options 1, 2, and 3 would do, Commissioner, if we adopt those 3 options.
Okay.
It's a package.
Okay. Well,
Is there a motion?
haven't heard that. My motion is that we accept the recommendations listed, which is a total package, that will take this to $500,000 to start, and a commitment up to $6.4 million over 3 fiscal years.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mayor Daley. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. The motion carries. Congratulations. Commissioner Matlow.
I just wanted to express my gratitude to the Bond community for making my first CRA decision an easy one. It's very inspiring to see a community come together, bond together, and really come to engage and with a plan. And to, I didn't even mean to. It was already just coming out. Okay, so, but and to come here with a great plan, I think you've really laid a foundation for other areas to follow, and to frankly come here with a demand that I think this board is happy to meet. It's a need that we're largely created to do. I wanted to caution a little bit on the conversation earlier about how bigger developments allow for this type of investment. I think we need to be looking at the neighborhoods holistically. Incremental development and incremental investments in the area do create rising property values, and it's diversified. It's spread across the entire community as each individual property owner gains wealth. And I think when we're looking for the future of Bond and the future of the CRA district, we really need to see how we can intentionally spread out the wealth that we're trying to create and maintain it locally in our community. So with that, and just to see all the community partners and the staff and this board all be on the same page is great. And to see the college students that have been involved. We talk a lot about how we can get talent to stay here and stay in Tallahassee after college. And, I'd reckon to say building a community here is a good reason to stay. And I hope you guys decide to stay after you graduate.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Mayor Daley.
I want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. First of all, thank you for coming out. We understand that to come downtown, find parking, get in City Hall, wait for the agenda item, it takes time. It's during the middle of it's the morning of a business day. And for you to take the time to come, we certainly appreciate it. I was not aware as exam week, and I am very impressed with the students that came out, not only with the product that you presented, but your presentation skills are second to none. And we definitely have some true talent. And certainly
Of course, they're Rattlers.
For the faculty and administration, you've paved the new way on how the town and gown issue should work. This is how municipalities in the county should work with universities, and we certainly appreciate your dedication to being part of it. Jackie, Felicia, Henry, that was 3 of the best presentations, most succinct, heartfelt presentations I have ever heard in 12 years of serving in public service. And I certainly appreciate your time and energy. Dr. Lewis, also want to recognize you as a former county commissioner here in Leon County.
The first African-American county commissioner.
That's right. And for your service as well. And I want to build on the comments that Commissioner Williams-Cox and Commissioner Matlow have mentioned. This is a new day at the CRA, and there is going to be a new focus and a new direction. And it is truly time, and we have all been saying this along with Commissioner Richardson, it is time to invest in our neighborhoods. It is time not only to invest in neighborhood infrastructure, it is time to invest in human capital. And we do that by coming together. I think that history is going to show in the near future that this is how the process works. This process was organic. It started in the neighborhood. And I give a lot of credit to Cynthia Barber and our city staff. Where are you, Cynthia?
She's working. She had to leave. Go right.
Sorry. But the fact of the matter that the city came to the table wide open with suggestions, worked together, and produced this amazing product. This is great. Now, I also know that moving forward, there's a lot of projects out there. We've got to get creative on how we fund these projects. And I'm going to push my colleagues, and I'm going to push staff that we need to have a paradigm shift on how we look. Mr. Tedder, if you remember when we funded the Magnolia Trail, multipurpose trail, We did that by combining 4 different pots of money from 4 different governmental entities, but we accomplished the goal. When I made that motion, it was county money, it was city money, it was CRTPA money, and it was IA money. We, in the future, are going to have to get creative with these type of projects. There's not enough money in CRA alone. And Dr. Lewis, I agree with you 100%. Can we do it? Absolutely. Are we going to have to push the limit? Absolutely. But that's what we got elected to do, and that's what we do day to day. And I'm committed to doing this. It's a great day at the CRA, and I'm proud to be a part of this vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Williams.
I just want to say that my heart and my face smiled the entire time listening to this. This is a dream come true to bring diverse groups together and have partners at the table to guide in a direction that will land in a positive place. We have other communities who are doing the same thing. This is hopefully this is a message to you that it is a new day and things are changing, and we will work together to make it happen in this entire city. So not just CRA dollars, as the mayor said, we're going to have to be creative to figure out how to get it all done, but you better believe, as in the words of 50 Cent, we're going to get rich or we're going to die trying to make it work for all of us. So thank you for coming to the table. Thank you for coming to be engaged and involved in your city government. And just know we're here for you, and we're happy to help wherever we can. And it was my esteemed pleasure to make this motion. But I think that we must not forget that our Dean of Commissioners, our chair, Commissioner Curtis Richardson, has been carrying this for a very long time, and he is now seeing some fruits of his labor. So I think he deserves some recognition for that.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe that's the first time 50 cents ever been quoted. Note for the record.
Not 50 cent, 50. 50 cent. All right.
Good stuff, Commissioner. Good stuff.
All right, we've got the balance of our agenda. If you'd like to stay, we've got a few more items on the agenda, but if you would like to leave, we'll give those who want to leave at this point a couple of minutes to leave before we continue with the agenda.
Students, please go make sure you finish what you started. Finish strong this semester.
Can I get the students outside? We want to get a picture of all of you.
Any of you graduating seniors? Well, congratulations. You'll be graduating on tomorrow or Saturday? Okay, all right, very good. Congratulations.
All right.
Congratulations.
Is Roxanne still in the chamber?
Yeah, she's right.
Oh, I see her with her back to me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and continue with the agenda. We're on item 6.01. Ms. Manning, are you going to present that item?
I just want to make sure that you voted on that. I know
we
did. And it was, okay.
It was unanimously carried.
Please let the minutes reflect, because that's going to be very important in the future.
Okay.
Okay.
Item 6.01.
Good morning, Commissioners and Mayor. The item before you, item 6.01, is the approval of the 2019 process for the downtown CRA promotional and special events and the large event grant programs. On September 13th of 2018, the board approved $75,000 in grant fund for downtown events. That did not provide us, they did not provide us with any direction to allocate those funds or how those funds should be awarded. So we're here today to ask you to approve the process for awarding and allocating those $75,000 of funds for small events as well as large events. Okay. And we have 3 recommendations that we would like for you all to consider. The first recommendation is to allow the $75,000 that was approved for downtown events to be split proportionally between the two categories, small and large, based on last year's funding amounts. This would allocate $20,000 for small events and $55,000 for large events. Our second recommendation is to use the same application process and review criteria used in previous years. For small events, that would allow up to $5,000 per event, and large downtown event applicants would be able to apply for up to $25,000, with first-time events being eligible for a maximum of $40,000. This would allow 4 small events to be funded at $5,000 each, and 2 large events to be funded at a $25,000 level. The third recommendation is to allow the CRA Executive Director to approve large events. In past years, the Executive Director approved the small event grants, while the CRA Board approved the large events. However, because of our CRA meeting schedule and time constraints, and in order to meet the spring schedule for most downtown events, we're recommending that the CRA Executive Director be authorized this one time to approve large events after a recommendation from a committee, which would consist of representatives from our Downtown Redevelopment Commission, our DRC, our Downtown Improvement Authority, and our Leon County Tourist Development Council. It should also be noted that in July of this year, the board approved $50,000 in grant fund for the fiscal 19 Greater Frenchtown Southside District, and we have already awarded 7 applications of $5,000 for their events. And so with this, we would like for you to look at approving the recommendation that we're offering this morning.
Okay. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Is there a...
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. What was the reasoning of the previous CRA for taking it from 135 down to 75? Remind me.
Yes. When we brought this to the commission in July for approving of the event funding, because of the downtown district was looking at a shortfall, we did not recommend approving any downtown events in July. But in September, when we brought that to the boards, when the board brought that to our attention, because of some of the public concern about funding downtown events, from the public cry, the board decided to put some funding towards the downtown, but not the majority of funding, to look at transitioning from funding downtown events to not funding downtown events. So instead of taking it away altogether at one time, they decided to lessen the amount.
So now the next item that we're about to do is the budget closeout.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So was that based on projections back in the spring, summer when that recommendation was made? And how does that shore up with what the closeout looks like? Put it this way, it's a $55,000 deficit. Is there room for us to have a discussion? Here's my concern. Philosophically, I don't think the CRA should be in the business of funding these type of programs. I think it's our responsibility as a city commission when we talk about and you're familiar with this, I know, Mr. Richardson, through our COCA funding and everything, and we should continuously look on how to increase that funding level, okay? However, is there a plan in place, or are we just leaving the community short $55,000? Okay, so the recommendation came down from the previous CRA to cut $55,000. Are we just looking at everybody saying, hey, you're on your own, move forward, or is there a plan in place? What I would love to see, if possible, is that this year we hold harmless at 135 with the understanding that we are working towards a different philosophy on how to fund downtown events through other funding sources besides the CRA, instead of just leaving everybody.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I would tell you that's how we've gotten to where we are now. This didn't just happen this year. This has happened progressively over the past several years because we realized we couldn't continue to fund the special events. And so that's how we got to where we are now. So this isn't the first year.
Sure.
And if we do the hold harmless, it's got to come from somewhere. And so you're going to be cutting other programs and the funding for those programs. So, I mean, keep that in mind as you contemplate that.
Is there any flexibility with the final numbers with the budget closeout?
Well, so the budget closeout is actually for the past year. Correct. So that's done, right? The money
carryover is my question.
Yes, we do. We have some carryover in the downtown, and that's actually where this money is coming from to fund the events. Yes, this is part of the carryover. Now, we can talk, when we start talking about our budget in the coming year, and we'll start fairly early in the next quarter, that's when we can talk about whether or not you want to fund events in the future, how you want to do it, or not at all. So that's something to look forward to.
Has there been any other increases in any other funding sources for the arts?
Not that I'm aware of. In fact, as was mentioned earlier by Ms. Johnson, there have been decreases. And when we start looking at how we do our budget next year, we're going to have to do sort of an update to find out where that's going.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Matlow?
Yeah, Matt. Just to clarify with the future budget for 2019, most of the projects that apply are in the spring. So if we're making budgeting decisions in the future, they probably wouldn't be able to get those for the spring, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just like to say, I know arts and culture get cut. You know, it's the first thing to always get cut, and it's a hard decision to make as we're making these budgets. But I do think there is a very strong value that a lot of these events, especially even the smaller events that bring a $5,000 investment, bring thousands of people out and really drive revenue in our community. So I'd like that we do take a deeper look at that and maybe come up with a plan even outside of this board about how we continue to fund the arts.
I agree. I mean, what was mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I believe me, we wrestled with this for a number, because there were those who wanted to continue the event funding, but we had projects like the bond project to fund, and we couldn't continue to justify the event funding at the levels that we had it when we had neighborhood redevelopment and revitalization to do, which is the true mission of a CRA. And so that's how we've gotten to where we have over the years. But it wasn't an easy decision, because we realized that those programs, Word of South, the Shakespeare Festival, were very important to the community. They brought a lot of economic investment into the community. But we wrestled with, is that the true mission of the CRA? And that's how we've gotten to where we are now with this level of funding.
I have a question regarding some of the options. I understand the timing of it, that we need to move so that those events happening in the spring will have opportunity for funding. But I don't want to operate in the blind. I don't want to find out later in the option to give this one-time authority to our executive director, who I'm sure is quite capable of doing this. I would like to be in the know of what these events are and whether they, I don't want anything to go into a black hole and not come out and I not know anything about it. I'm trying to prevent getting phone calls because I don't know what happened. So is there some mechanism in place where we can be informed of what's coming into the hopper, what is recommended?
There are a couple of things we can do. We totally understand your concern. One is the committee can let you know, but they'd have to do it individually, let you know what's in the hopper. But probably the simplest thing to do is we can simply schedule a very quick CRA board meeting, possibly just before or after one of the city commission meetings. And that way you can come in, the staff will let you know what's been recommended, you can make an approval, and it'll only take a few minutes.
I like that.
Is that the desire of the board?
Move staff recommendation.
Okay. All right. That's what we'll do. We'll work on that with the city manager to get that update at a special meeting of the CRA board at the conclusion of, when do we meet again as a city commission?
January
That's the other issue.
30th, I believe. January 30th.
Mm-hmm. And the CRA board meeting is January 31st.
Okay.
So it's just the day after.
Yeah, it's the day after.
Or we can do it on the same day. I've been here where you convened as the CRA board and then you went in recess, convened as another board and Whenever he says
Yeah,
something.
we can do that if that's your desire, but what they're saying is the city commission meets on the 30th, the following day, the CRA meets again.
Well, the important thing to note here is for the committee that reviews the applications to do their work, they're anticipating completing their work on the 15th of February, but the city commission meets again on the 20th of February. So we could target that date and somehow get a little meeting in there for you, a little CRA board meeting, so you could just make that decision. The timing would still work for all of the applicants.
Okay.
Because what we can do is we open the cycle in the 1st of January, and we close the cycle the end of January. At your January 31st meeting, we can bring those the individuals that applied for the app through the application cycle. And in February, we're going to score and rank those with our committee. And so we can, at a city commission meeting, we can present who was actually awarded funds in terms of who's being recommended for awarding funds.
Perfect.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
All right. All right, thank you.
Can I just verify, Commissioners, that we're talking about options?
Yes.
You're approving options 1 and 2.
Yes.
And under option 3, what you want us to do is we will hold our CRA board meeting concurrent with the late February
City commission meeting.
which you will break and sit as a CRA board, then reconvene as a city commission.
Right.
I believe option 1 says the authority to grant awards, and I believe that's what Commissioner Williams-Cox is requesting. We actually grant the awards at that city commission meeting.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
I thought option 1 was just to approve the funding allocations. Did you want to?
Option 1 is Commissioner Matlow, is simply to fund the allocation. And then option 2 was the approval process. And then now option 3 is to meet at the February city commission meeting. Right.
Right.
So those are the 3 options that we're considering now. Is there a motion to approve those 3 options?
Motion on table.
Okay, so a motion by the mayor.
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Matlow. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 7.01, approval of the fiscal year 2018 City of Tallahassee CRA budget closeout. Ms. Manning, are you presenting that?
And I'll present that as well.
Okay.
Commissioner Richardson.
Okay.
For your fiscal year 2018 budget closeout, we have 8 slides. I don't necessarily need to go through these unless you want me to go through these, but basically I can just look at the last slide that kind of gives you an overview of that process. And we'll just go to the very last one. And, oops, there you go. So basically for the Greater Frenchtown Southside District, our revenues, we received $6.5 million in revenues, and you'll see where our operating expenses were $535,000. Our capital expenditures were $2.2 million, providing us with a surplus of $3.7 million. And the surplus dollars, your breakout, they consist of our fiscal 18 and prior year balances of $1.2 million, and then our reserves of $2.4 million. And then the same thing in our downtown district. Our revenues were $3.5 million, our operating expenses $200,000, capital expenditures of $863,000, giving us a surplus of $2.4 million. And then the breakdown of that surplus is our fiscal year 18 and prior year balances and our reserves for 2.4. So basically, our fiscal year 18 budget closeout shows a surplus, and then also giving you a breakdown of where that surplus is. And if you have any other questions, I'm here to answer those.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the budget closeout?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Matlow, seconded by Commissioner Williams-Cox. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That carries us to item 8.01, unagended items, board discussion. Are there any speakers for unagended items? No, sir, I have no speaker cards for unagended items. Okay.
Yes, one. Dr. Ed Hollyfield on unagended.
Dr. Hollifield, would you come and?
I sent out a email to to all of you folks about this development agreement. I'd like to know, especially you, Curtis, how many of you have even read this development agreement between Big Chaos?
I read it.
And you folks? It has a number of things in it that are not discretionary. They have to do it. They have to do it. And if they don't do it, the agreement says they're in default. And I submit that apparently there are some things they haven't done. And this promise of doing it in February, that's not good enough. The time frame is specified in the agreement, the time by which they have to do it. So it's very convenient for Roxanne to say, well, they haven't done it, but we'll see if they'll do it by February. No, if they haven't done it in a timely fashion, they're in default. And that should be declared. Annual reports are required every year. That's why it says annual. I haven't seen an annual report from Big Cares. I haven't seen it. Have you? Well, if they haven't produced it, where is it? And if they haven't produced it, are they in fact in default? Now, I argue that they should have never gotten that money in the first place, $1.5 million, to a not-for-profit. I remind you, there is no tax increment financing for a not-for-profit. They should have never gotten that money from the CRA in the first place. But they did, and the community doesn't benefit. How can we benefit when there's no increment so far as tax financing is concerned? I mean, that was a scam from the very beginning. There's also an equal opportunity clause in this. They ain't supposed to discriminate. It says the developer shall not discriminate directly or indirectly. Yet if I go down to Big Cares or CarePoint, I get put in jail. Now, I know Curtis would like to see me in jail, and Sylvia Hubbard the same way. Sylvia Hubbard is a 60-year-old great-grandmama. They had this United Partnership conference not all of that long ago, and she couldn't go. United Partnership for Human Services or whatever. Y'all heard of that? Sylvia Hubbard was excluded. Excluded. So is this so-called equal opportunity clause in this development agreement just for show?
Dr. Hollifield, your time is up.
No, my time is up. You got one speaker.
Dr.
Because nobody else
Hollifield,
wants
your
to hang
time is
around
up.
here. You got one speaker.
Dr. Hollifield,
and you're
your
gonna
time
say,
is up.
I can't take an extra minute.
Dr. Hollifield, your time is up.
Curtis,
Thank you.
you are not a dictator. You're a public
Dr.
servant.
Hollifield, your time is
And
up.
I'm going to
Thank
continue.
you.
Well, you can always turn off my microphone. You
Board
can proceed
members,
to do
we
that.
are on
The other thing is, I
Dr.
have
Hollifield,
never
your
heard
time
the
is
word
up.
poverty all day long.
Dr.
You take
Hollifield, your
census
time is
tract
up.
10.01, there's an 80.1% childhood poverty rate.
Board members, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
10.01 census tract. Now, Curtis doesn't want to hear this because Curtis will do anything that leadership Tallahassee and the chamber tells him to do.
Dr.
But I'm going to
Hollifield,
tell
your
you,
time
this
is up.
not your microphone, Curtis. This is my microphone. I paid for it.
Dr.
This
Hollifield, your
is
time
my
is up.
microphone.
Your time
So
is
I'm
up.
just saying, y'all need to talk about this childhood, 25% childhood hunger rate. You need to talk about this 80.1% childhood poverty rate. And you need to talk about the CRA funding companies that sell tobacco products in the
Dr.
black community.
Hollifield, your time is up. Thank you.
480,000 people a year die from tobacco alone.
Dr.
480,000,
Hollifield, your
Curtis.
time is up.
And the
Thank
tobacco
you.
companies target the black community, and the CRA gives money to these companies that sell
Dr.
tobacco.
Hollifield, your time is up.
So I'm
Thank you.
saying, really, if this is supposed to be a new day so far as the CRA with all this corruption, then I'm demanding
Dr.
that you
Hollifield,
act like it's a new
your
day.
time is up. Thank you.
And again, Curtis,
Board
I think
members,
you've been on the
if we are
commission
going
too long.
to, if we're going to have a different policy for speakers to be heard, please let me know that. Other than that, I would expect your support when I ask a speaker to abide by what our current policy is. I don't mind letting a speaker speak, but we have a policy now. And so if we're going to change that, then we can agenda that and have that discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Williams-Cox.
I would like to ask Ms. Manning to please get us information in regards to the status of those items that he did bring forward regarding our contract with CarePoint. I know that as a citizen, I personally had asked about the minority participation in that project and what had been reported, and at that time I was told that it was too early to report. That's been a few months. So I think that it is important that whatever contracts we have, if there are status points, we need to make sure we get those items, because it sends a message to others that we do mean what we put in contracts, and those contracts are enforceable. And if we find that someone or some company has not been a good partner, then we ought to give them opportunity to remedy it. But if they don't, then we need to take whatever recourse for contracts that are not completely done in the spirit that the contract was done in. And to you, Mr. Chair, I'm going to fall on the sword and say, as a new member of the CRA board, the last thing I want to do today is alienate citizens who want to speak, and I don't want to jump in, into your position as chair. So please advise us of what we need to do to support you in that endeavor. But when you're in the heat of discussion, I don't think that it's proper protocol for us to jump in, not knowing what to do or how to do it. So I'm open to whatever we need to do, because we do support you. I do support you as chair.
Okay.
I could answer some of those questions now if you would like, that Dr. Hollifield was posing.
Could you bring that back to us?
Absolutely. I just want to reassure you we are following
I
up.
don't want to answer off the cuff. I want something that's...
Okay.
Okay.
We'll bring him back.
Even you could come to Commissioner Williams-Cox with an individual briefing if you'd like that. I'm comfortable with it because I've been here and I know what the information is. So if you all want an individual briefing, they can do that. If not, we can bring it back at our next CRA meeting. What's the desire of the board?
I'm happy for a briefing.
Okay.
But if Ms. Manning, if you're comfortable that it's not off the cuff, you have it in writing, you have something ready to go. I don't want to,
Commissioner Williams-Cox, I'd prefer to either do the individual briefing or bring it back at our next CRA meeting.
Okay.
Whichever is the desire of the board at this point.
Well, I will let other board members speak. I've given my option.
Yeah, I'd make a motion that we bring it back and have a formal presentation.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second, and we'll have it on the agenda for the next CRA meeting in the end of January, the 31st of January. Okay. Yes. Okay, so that brings us to our final.
There's a second
Mr.
the motion.
McGraw.
We didn't hear a vote on that. There was a motion and a second. I didn't hear a vote.
Yeah, it was a motion by Mayor Daley, seconded by
But we didn't vote.
Commissioner Matlow.
I'm sorry, I guess we didn't hear the
All
vote.
in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. That was my fault. I apologize. Motion carries unanimously. Okay. All right, that brings us to the final item on the agenda. Are there any items that any board member would like to bring up at this point? Hearing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you all. Happy holidays and Merry Christmas.